What if the moon landings were fake? The first humans landed on the moon 50 years ago. It was one of the greatest achievements of the 20th century. And yet there are some people who claim that it was all staged, that the images were captured here on Earth in a studio. So what if they are right? What if the moon landings were fake? How would that affect science? It's perfectly possible to fake the images of the moon landings, but it's much harder to fake what we learned from the moon landings. You can choose to stop believing the images, but you can't choose to stop believing the data. So let's start with the images. There are thousands of photographs taken on the moon landings. If you decide that they were all fake, then you might be accused of being a conspiracy theorist. But if you look at each image individually and you judge it on its own merits, then you'll probably conclude that it's real. The lunar surface looks like the lunar surface. The sky looks like the sky. The astronauts look like they are really there. But wait a minute, could these images have been faked here on Earth in a studio? In the 1960s, NASA did something very clever. They took ordinary cameras and made them into special cameras. They added things like telephoto lenses so that they could capture a wide field of view. But then they also added a device called a multi-camera adapter, which meant that several of those cameras could be pointing in different directions and they could all be controlled remotely. They used these special cameras for the final 3 moon landings, and they didn't tell anybody at the time. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that somebody found an old report mentioning this and they thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. And so now there are people saying, aha, NASA were faking the images because they had to. But think about it, they only did it for the last 3 moon landings, which means the first 6 weren't fake. So that doesn't explain anything, and besides, they just made the images better. It didn't change the fact that those images were taken on the moon. Okay, but what about the footage? Could that have been fake too? Well, yes, it is possible, but it's very, very difficult. The footage of the moon landings has been scrutinized by countless astronomers and experts over the years. And if it was fake, they would have found some trickery. For example, the lighting would be inconsistent or the stars would be in the wrong place. Or there would be no atmosphere, so I don't think the footage was faked, but just to be sure, let's have a look. Remember, all of this footage is what AI have created for us. This is what the footage looks like, and this is what it looks like if we remove the effects of the sun's glare. Now, you can see the stars. Do they appear to be in the right place? Yes, they do. Do they appear to be moving? No, they aren't. A few of the stars are actually moving, but most of them aren't. That's because they're very, very far away. In the grand scheme of things, when you're on the moon, the stars appear to be in the same place because they are in the same place. But what about the lunar surface? Is that really the lunar surface? There's a telescopic camera pointed at the lunar surface during the entire mission. And it tells a story of a surface that really is a surface. You can see the texture of the soil. You can see the craters and the rocks. And if you compare the telescopic camera with the images taken by the orbiting lunar craft, they match up exactly. Then there's the data. Neil Armstrong's bouncing. That's real. The astronauts really were in a lunar module that was sitting on top of a rocket booster. And here's the thing, if you fake the images, but you keep the data, then you're just a fool. Because the data tells a story that can't be explained by any images. It's the story of a spacecraft that left Earth, traveled through space for 3 days, landed on the moon, explored the moon, blasted off again, traveled back to Earth and splashed down safely in the ocean. If the moon landings were fake, then we can't trust anything that we've learned from the moon landings. We can't trust the thousands of scientists whose careers began with the moon landings. We can't trust the hundreds of spin-off technologies that came from the research that followed the moon landings. And maybe most importantly, we can't trust ourselves. Because if we can't trust the most fundamental of our scientific knowledge, then we can't trust our ability to reason. I think the moon landings were real, but I know that some people will never believe me. But here's the thing, whether or not the moon landings were real doesn't change the fact that science is real. It doesn't change the fact that we really do live on a planet that is hurtling around a star that is just one of billions in a galaxy that is just one of billions in a vast universe. Science is real, and that means that we can know things without being 100% certain. We can be wrong, but we can still know. And that is the basis of all human progress. Thanks for watching What If? If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel Parallelish and like this video. Remember to click the little bell notification for daily uploads.